Morning, this is Garrett. It is May 24th, Thursday, May 24th, 2018. Coming to you live from my sitting room in my house. We're home from the hospital. John has been born. He's happy and healthy. And my wife and him, they're resting upstairs. I'm seeing our other children kind of trickling in from sleep. They had a really good time at Aunt Katie's and Uncle Todd's house. The youngest two, Enoch and Evelyn, were over there for the past couple of days while Lauren and I were in the hospital, and John. And and then Josiah and Eli and Solomon and Daniel had a great time with our friends in Savage. And just thank you so much to all of you guys. Thank you to my Aunt Connie for baking us a lasagna and garlic bread and salads, and it was just delicious last night. Really, really good. Really hit the spot. Not least because we've been getting by on fast food and hospital food for the past couple of days, and it was really, really good to have that meal, and to have this really good brownie pudding pie or cake or whatever for dessert. It was really, really good. I ate entirely too much, but that's only because my Aunt Connie was very generous in her portions that she prepared for us, and so thank you. Thank you very much to everybody. Thank you also to Holy Rosary in Miles City, Montana. That's where we had John, and Dr. Gallo there, and the staff, the nurses, really, really nice people. We had Enoch there as well. Didn't end up having a home birth this time around either, and that's fine. There's no shame in that. If you're going to have it at a hospital in eastern Montana, very nice people there in Miles City. Really, thank you again. So today, I've got a couple things I want to hit. I haven't been able to talk through this video blogging thing since Monday. It's Thursday. I've kind of gotten a taste for this now. I don't know how many people that I know are watching my videos, but some of them have gotten 30 views, and some have gotten anywhere from a dozen to 3 dozen views, and a couple of people have made suggestions on things they'd like me to do videos about. Just had a conversation with my buddy Jeff yesterday. Actually, he gave me a call. I was in the hospital, and he had been texting me, and he was asking who I liked for who's running in our district for Montana's House of Representatives. And he had seen that I had liked something that was shared by Joel Crowder, who is an attorney here in Sydney, Montana. And I had jury duty twice this past year, and one of the 2 times I actually witnessed a case or served as juror on a case that Joel was the defense attorney for, and that's my only experience with him. The only thing I really knew about him personally, but I thought he did a good job. And it just so happened I saw something he had shared on Facebook that was positive regarding investing in the infrastructure of eastern Montana. And now that oil is coming back up, the price of oil is coming back up, we need to see investment in eastern Montana. And we need to have a regulatory environment and a tax climate in this state which for one, encourages businesses to come and to set up shop here. It encourages, companies that might be service companies and what have you, to want to put their offices here. Production companies, oil and gas companies that want to drill. We want them to have their offices here. We want them to see eastern Montana. And there is oil in Montana. We want them to see Montana is an attractive place to explore and to drill, and we want to make that as easy as possible. There need to be safeguards, obviously. I live here. My wife and kids live here. I am not for polluting the environment, polluting the air or the water. or any of that, but we do have opportunity, and we need to take it. And so far, just to give you a little bit of context, western half of Montana, peopled by a lot of people that a lot of immigrants from California and from more liberal states. And the eastern side of the state, we talk about it often in terms of state politics, that the western side of the state is California light. And it's people that have maybe left California because California went nuts, but then they've proceeded to make western Montana and to try and make the rest of the state as bad as California, as bad as what they left, by encouraging the same policies that have made California nuts, made it crazy. And then eastern Montana, even though we're more conservative politically, socially, you've got much more in the way of farmers and ranchers and oil field workers. We're kind of along for the ride. You get movie stars and celebrities that move to the western side of the state. They want their cabin in the mountains, and they set up shop there, and then they decide that they want their pristine mountain view, and so they're going to oppose and put money behind candidates that are going to oppose development of Montana's natural resources. And what it ends up being is that these wealthy virtue signalers have these convenient policies that, let's reintroduce wolves to Yellowstone, and let's protect the wolves, and let's just take it all back to nature. And it's also that they can go back to California, they can go back to the other parts of the country and the world that they're from, and virtue signal to their rich, snobby, progressive friends. And meanwhile, they don't give a whit what it does to the economy of Montana, how it constrains those that are poor and that need jobs, who have moved to Montana so that they can have American opportunity as well. And the celebrities don't really care about that. And so, come to find out from my friend Jeff and from Pastor Jordan Hall here in Sydney, Montana. And just for the record, me and Jordan Hall, I like him personally in terms of his boldness and all that. We've disagreed. I make no apologies for disagreeing with him on several things and objecting to some of his mannerisms and whatnot. But I will say I appreciate something he shared the other day, which I'd like to find. Hopefully it's not buried in my Facebook feed by all of the pictures of my newborn son, John. Oh, where did it go? It should be in here because I shared it, or I thought I did. Let's see. Okay. Now, he says, consider these facts for a minute. According to financial campaign docs filed with Montana Political Practices, the bulk of Crowder's 50 or so campaign donors come from outside Richland County, and that's our district here, where he's running and where he lives and all that. They come from California, New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Michigan, and western Montana. Only a small amount comes from Richland County. Of these donors, more than 20% are attorneys. In comparison, raising virtually the same amount, Rosts, and that is who's running against Joel Crowder for this seat in the House, Tanya Rost. Rost's campaign is 100% from eastern Montana, with only a few being from neighboring counties. The bulk of her donors list as a vocation rancher, farmer, oil field worker. And, I appreciate that he shared that. That was information I did not have. I had Jeff Jorgensen. He called me up and he said, "Hey, I saw you like something that Joel Crowder has shared." And just a little bit of backstory on that. He does not like to advertise, but he was head of the college Democrats there at Liberty University. I attended Liberty University online here this past year or two. Took several courses, took about a year's worth of courses. And so I saw that Joel had attended Liberty University, and I thought, well, that's cool, great. Okay, we probably have similar values if that's the case. And I haven't had the time. I've been pretty busy, as most people are, I think, to really investigate, dig much deeper than that. But I thought, hey, somebody goes to Liberty University, they probably have certain values in common with me, and if he was the head of the Democrat club at Liberty, then maybe not so much. I'm going to take that with a grain of salt that he went to that college. And so anyway, I plan to do another video here, hopefully tomorrow or this weekend. I actually also plan to call the gal who is running against Joel Crowder, or who Joel is running against. I don't know which came first or who decided to run against who, but I plan to call her and ask her some questions about what her positions are on certain things, what she's hoping to accomplish. I don't plan on calling Joel, but Jeff had Tanya's number and he offered it to me. He knows her personally, and so why not? I usually I'm not afraid of politics whatsoever. I've written far more, though, about politics from a philosophical standpoint. I don't really get local. I don't pay much attention to local politics, and that's a deficiency on my part. That's it's something I should rectify. But I've paid a great deal more attention to political philosophy, the history behind political parties and ideas and policies. I pay much more attention on the national level, federal level, and on international politics. That's where more of my interest is, because there's a lot more coverage of it. For one, I mean, it's always in your face, and you can get different perspectives on the same candidates, the same issues, the same. Anyway, goes without saying, but. There's a quote, I don't know who said it, unless Google, my quick Google search here is leading me in the right direction, but the phrase, all politics is local, common phrase in U.S. politics. Former Speaker of the House of Representatives, U.S. House of Representatives, Tip O'Neill, most closely associated with this phrase. So all politics is local, which is to say, the politics of New York and California, especially if it starts funneling money to a candidate in your conservative state, your conservative district, a candidate who's running as a Republican, boy howdy, California and New York politics can all of a sudden become pretty local for you too. Then you get somebody like Hungarian billionaire George Soros, and all of the money he's tried to put into district attorney races across America and trying to change our political landscape and our government, trying to basically subvert America by pouring money into races and favoring candidates who are either A, going to out and out support and advocate his policies, or else B, the next best thing, do nothing to stop the rise of his favored policies, and so you can get a 1-2 punch, right? Where whether it's the hand that is punching you in the face, America, or it's the hand that's holding you by the scruff of the neck while the other hand punches you. We've got a problem with political candidates in America who either are rabidly progressive and can't even understand the most basic and fundamental of distinctions between people, like gender, and who call it hateful to say that men and women are different. Like they can't even grasp that, but then they want to run the world. And I'm at a loss for how they get any traction, but they do. And part of the way that they do is that the alternative, oftentimes, somebody is running for a Republican, is they talk about reaching across the aisle. They bandy about all these pleasant-sounding phrases, talking about cooperation and bipartisanship. And what they really mean is that they're going to sell the farm. They're going to sell your principles down the river first chance they get, and they'll give the Soros people and the New York and California politicians what they want in half measures. So I'll give you half now and half later, and so that's going to be our bipartisan deal. I'll stick to half my principles, or I'll stick halfway to my principles. That's going to be the compromise. And meanwhile, the progressives are just licking their chops, and they're hey, all right, we're still getting it, and that's not what we want. That's not what we need. I'm not in favor of that. I'm all for someone being able to have a civil discussion with people that they disagree with, being able to work together in as much as you can work together with crazy liberals and socialists and all that. But when working together means you're destroying the country or allowing it to be destroyed, and you're being negligent and standing idly by, then that's not the kind of bipartisanship we need. So anyway, I plan to do an interview, probably just a loose conversational interview with Tanya Rost, and then to have a video blog, talking about what her answers are to my various questions. And I think it'll be an education for me. I don't know if anybody will watch it. I don't know if it's going to decide anything in terms of the course of this race, or Montana's state politics, or local politics, or any of that. But I'll at least learn something in the process, and so it can't hurt, I don't think. I'm wearing also, I will note, wearing my Don't Tread on Me t-shirt. I figured that would be a good one for today's topic, which we haven't even gotten into yet. It's 17 minutes in, but I've got several days worth of driving back and forth. I had an interview that my wife wanted to go to. Some company had asked me to come in for an interview. Yeah, we'll see if that turns into anything. Very exciting prospect. I won't mention company names or specifics or any of that, but I'm hoping to hear back something tomorrow. But I had lots of driving, lots of waiting in the hospital. You just, my wife does all the work, and I caught John again. I think I've caught all of our children, or close to all of our children, and I snipped the umbilical cord. We clamped it both ends and snipped it, and other than that, I ran out. I mean, she did the work. She's resting for a good reason today. Her body went through this wonderful, miraculous process of birth, giving birth, and I think it's fantastic. I think it's wonderful. I think the world of her. And she takes it in stride. The nurses called her stoic, and they asked her, "You having a contraction right now?" And she says, "Yeah, I am." And he says, "Man, you take it so bravely and so well." And I was really amazed too. I mean, because it seemed like it was start, stop. The contractions, they'd be really strong and regular, and then they would slow down. And she was getting frustrated. I could tell. My wife was. And then all of a sudden, it's okay, I'm ready. And it's like, oh, really? Like, oh, wow, that's cool, And so and we had the baby, and that was that. Are you trying to get into the video?
Not really.
Just your finger. It's going to be Eli's finger there, and Eli's voice. You can hear on the very margins. And he's going to come around so you can see Eli's face as well. My children making guest appearances in my video. I like it. I think if nothing else, 10 years from now, I hope I look back and I see their heads, little heads popping in, and I enjoy it. If you don't, then suck it up. Get over it. It's life, right? Can you get what?
Can I get something out of the room?
Yes, you may. So I've got a couple of things I want to talk about besides that trailer I just gave you for what I plan to do for the next video blog, there is a notice that greeted me on Facebook yesterday when I logged in for the first time since coming home. And it was about Facebook's intention, their stated intention, to fight fake news, false news. I guess they have retermed it slightly, false news. And they had, they just wanted to put me on notice that they were going to use feedback from the community to let them know when they need to suppress voices and creators of content and whatnot. And I took a screenshot just for future reference, because I've been struggling with this for several years now, where I know censorship is happening on the internet. I read the news voraciously. I don't think most people read the news as much as I do. And I have Drudge Report is my most used by about 100, even more than Facebook. And I've got this little speed dial deal on my Google Chrome, which is my browser of choice. And I've got, 4 by 5, I've got 20 little speed dial buttons here. And it'll tell me how many times I've clicked each one of these speed dial buttons, and then it ranks, it'll organize them from left to right, top to bottom, accordingly. Excuse me 1 second. I'm also going to see in 10 years how often I sign my kids into their Kindles, which is often. But no, right now, Drudge Report is top left. Is that a tick?
Yeah.
Okay, go flush him. No, don't throw him in the trash. Flush him. What's that bad, Johnny? 1,353 clicks on Drudge Report, and I don't remember how long I've had it as my speed dial, but if you divided that out into, let's say, even once a day, that is 3.707, rounding up, 3.707 years of clicking Drudge Report every day, and skimming through all of the major headlines for what's happening in the world. And so I read quite a bit, and I've been following with growing concern the censorship of dissenting political voices and social commentary on the internet for a while now, and I've been trying to sound the alarm. I've got a good many libertarian friends and family who, it's gotten to the point now, anytime I object or I say, hey, this is happening, they come out of the woodworks and they try and preemptively strike what they perceive is lurking around the corner, which is my advocating a government intervention to stop censorship of dissenting voices on Google, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, etc., etc. And up until very recently, and by very recently I mean the past couple of months, because I've been saying stuff about this for years, up until the past couple of months, I did not say anything about government intervention. I didn't say, hey, there should be a law against this, or these guys should go to jail, they should be fined, or they should, we should tar and feather them, drive them out of town on a rail. I was just saying this is a problem, this is an issue. And I think what it comes down to is libertarians, they are willing and almost wanting to be the underdog. I don't even know if they really want, with Rand Paul and Ron Paul, I don't even know if they really want to be in charge, because it is a self-defeating argument that they would take I don't even think they want to be in charge. They just want to complain anytime the government does anything, and they're for a system in which nothing happens from the government standpoint, and that would be great if we could make that a reality. The problem is, if you start with censorship of conservative voices and conservative thought and anything that challenges the progressive agenda, including Christianity, Christian faith, Christian morality, you start with the censorship of that. You're just going to let that happen without complaint, or you're going to reserve your complaints and your objections for the people who are saying that's a bad thing. And that's what happens. It's the path of least resistance, really. I find libertarians infuriating because you imagine a scenario like World War II, and you get these Ron Paul types who want to talk about American intervening in World War II, fighting Nazism, fighting the Cold War, fighting the Soviets and the communists, and they make it sound like that was our fault, that Nazis in Germany were trying to take over Europe, and that they were mass murdering the Jews. The libertarian thought on an international policy level would be: you live and let live, you don't intervene, you leave the Nazis to do their thing, and you just deal with them when they try to invade your particular country. And so also with the Soviets, as they're taking over country after country after country, you just leave them alone. Don't bother them, and they won't bother you. And it's naive and foolish. It's foolishness. I like on a domestic level their policy of live and let live. For the most part, you have to draw the line sometimes. This idea that somebody else's personal choices don't affect me. Yeah, to a point. But if you are just an extremist on that, and you don't believe there should be any laws, you don't believe there should be speed limits, you don't believe that, sorry, that it doesn't affect you until it does. And I'm very much against the progressive alternative, which is eventual socialism. You regulate everything to the nth degree, and you think that just doing it slowly rather than through a violent revolution, the way that the Bolsheviks did in Russia, that makes it okay. Well, no, it doesn't. Actually, you're just slowly breaking the machine rather than doing it all at once and getting it over with. And maybe all the more insidiously, if you break the country piece by piece by regulating, commandeering sectors of the economy, of society, rewriting all of the rules, or saying there are no rules in the places where you can't rewrite them. Both are just foolish. But, whatever your philosophy is, if you're a libertarian, if you're a progressive, if you're whatever, you should be really concerned by the trend. And this is not my imagination. Do your research. If you don't know this is happening, it's only because you haven't been paying attention. You haven't been reading the news. You haven't been reading the headlines. You haven't been reading... you read the articles. Read Facebook, their history of suppressing news from conservative sources, or positive stories about conservative candidates running for political office. It's so insidious what they're doing with trying to influence our political persuasion as a people, as a country. And if they're successful, and if we let them do it without objection, without pushback or any of that, it's just a matter of time before they absolutely get their way, and there's nothing then that anybody can do to stop them and to roll it back, because everybody will have drunk the Kool-Aid and be brain dead, if they're not already. I got this sweet piece of mail from Dave and Charla Brammer in Iowa, and the people that we know through their daughter, who we went to, daughters, we went to college, went to Cedarville University with two of their daughters, and we've kind of struck up a little bit of a friendship on Facebook. Met them when they came into our area. We're were passing through Williston, seeing some family in the area. We got together for lunch. They treated us very sweetly to lunch, and so they sent me this publication from Hillsdale College. And I've read a number of things. I don't subscribe to any of Hillsdale College's materials. Everything I've read from them, I really like. I really appreciate what they're trying to do. I think we're simpatico in our conviction of what ails America and what the cure is for the sickness that we have. But this issue of Imprimis, January 2018, it's volume 47, number 1, is it's adapted from a speech delivered at Hillsdale College, December 12th, 2017, by an Amy L. Wax, Robert Mundheim, professor of law at the University of Pennsylvania Law School. And Amy Wax, smart gal. She's paid her dues. She's gotten her education. She is now giving other people an education. And so she tells about having written something with a colleague and published it, where she said that basically something's happened. Our culture is broken in the past several decades, and from the World War II decades through the mid 1960s, the value system of America was such that families were seen as a unit. Mother, father, married, then you have children. Mother and father stay together and raise those children. We had work ethics. We had we valued honesty and integrity. We believed there was such a thing as right and wrong, and good and evil, and truth and falsehood. And what has replaced that since the 1960s has been relativism, has been this view of all cultures being equal. Everything is okay. Nothing is prohibited. Nothing is wrong. Nothing is bad. Nothing is false. What's true for you is true for you. What's true for me might not be what's true for you. But we can't go telling each other that we're wrong. We've departed the path of righteousness or wisdom. And as a result, we have all these problems. We have crime. We have economic problems. We have political problems. And the cure for what ails our culture and our political system and our economy is a return to some of the values that we've abandoned en masse since the 1940s and between the 1940s and 1960s. And so she wrote this, and her colleague, they wrote some things that were specific and said that not all cultures are equal, and that the nomadic culture of the Plains Indians was not well suited, is not well suited to the first world 21st century environment. Nor are the single-parent antisocial habits prevalent among some working-class whites, the anti-acting white rap culture of inner-city blacks, the anti-assimilation ideas gaining ground among some Hispanic immigrants. And in payment, in gratitude for her having written and published these things with her colleague, there was this huge uproar. And a number of her colleagues, I think fully half of her colleagues at the University of Pennsylvania, signed an open letter not responding to the substance of what she had said, but basically saying she needs to be out of a job. And if not, she needs to be watched very carefully, and encouraging her students to watch her very carefully for any signs of discrimination and to report that immediately. And so, there is basically one or two things needs to happen to Amy L. Wax now at the University of Pennsylvania Law School. Either A, she needs to be fired, or else B, she needs to be, slapped on the hand, and then have a role reversal with her students, where her students are now told to keep a close eye on her, so that, if she needs to be terminated, they give her an F And if you can get her students to say they don't like what she's saying anymore, well, then we'll fire her, you know. And, you know, she writes for Hillsdale College, or rather she came and gave a speech, and then it was adapted for this publication, where she says, you know, it's frightening that the response was not academic. You know, from other professors, her colleagues, the response was not an academic, treatment, a critical examination of her points, presenting of evidence to the contrary, or of a better way to organize the evidence or to interpret it. The response was to just get angry and to make threats and to call names. And this is true in academia. This is true in broader society. This is true in our culture at large. And, you know, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Did we become this culturally, and then the academia is reflecting that? Or did academia get taken over by cultural Marxists who wanted this to be our culture? And then they have been able to tell the influential people who they are acting like a screen to filter as they come through their institutions. They said, hey, this is how you're going to have to think, or else we're going to give you a failing grade. We're even going to give you a failing grade if you're a professor and you start bucking the system. If you're Jordan Peterson at University of Toronto, you start saying, I'm not going to use these new gender pronouns that you want me to use. And that's all he was doing. He was saying, I'm not going to submit to your fascist control of my language. You can't tell me what I can or cannot say, or force me to start using language that I detest, which is unscientific, which is contrary to good taste and good judgment. You can't force me to do that. I object, and I'm going to object strenuously. And I've done my research. That's what Jordan Peterson said. He says, I've done my research. I've read the literature on fascism, on totalitarian, authoritarian regimes and how they operate. And this is textbook what the left is doing. They are trying to bring about a totalitarian regime that controls every aspect of society. And the way you do that is, you know, if you can control what people say and what they don't say, you can control everything else. You know, you just silence the voices that disagree with you and challenge you. What else is there? You know, if you can't communicate, communication is the basis for organization. It's the basis for mobilization. You know, if you can't communicate your ideas, then nobody else is going to listen. Nobody can listen. You can't persuade people. And so then whoever has their finger on the mute button, they're going to get to decide what everybody thinks and feels, or at least what gets done at the end of the day, what the system ends up being, by just keeping out any voices that would challenge them or rebuke them. And that's what Facebook is doing. That's what academia is doing. Social media, mass media is tightening the noose, ratcheting up. You know, it's like a constrictor, right? It's this big snake that has coiled around us and around our collective mind. And every time you breathe out and your chest, kind of relaxes a little bit, it squeezes tighter so that it's that much harder for you to take the next breath in, and then eventually you just suffocate. You know, and they can wait. You'll get tired. And then the libertarians, they say, well, we don't want some totalitarian regime. We don't want to support some totalitarian regime that would have the power to get the constrictor uncoiled from us.
Yeah.
Well, then you're going to die. You're going to be you're going to be suffocated and eaten by the snake. How does that work for your principles? You know, congratulations, you're an idiot. That's what it is. Sorry. And if that's not nice, well, guess what? It's not nice either to get strangled by a python and eaten. You know, I'm trying to save your freaking life, people. Anyways, here you go. Is your mom up there with John?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's changing.
Okay. All right. That's perfect.
And by the way, he was born a few days ago.
Yes. Yes, he was. So Facebook has got these guidelines, and I had an opportunity to, they asked what my feedback was after reading it, and I said I don't trust you. I don't trust Facebook to be monitoring and arbitrating this in a neutral, objective fashion, because the stories are pretty clear that you guys suppress. You suppress people who disagree with you. I'll just read this real quick for you. And this is, I've got it screenshotted. If you want to take a look at the screenshot, if you don't come across, if they take this down before you get a chance to see it, or if not everybody saw it, let me know and I will share this screenshot that I took. We are committed to reducing the spread of false news on Facebook. We remove fake accounts and disrupt economic incentives for people that share misinformation. Interesting. We also use signals like feedback from our community. Not limited to feedback from our community. Note that. Like feedback from our community. Which is to say, if Zuckerberg or anybody else is just browsing around and they say, I don't like what that guy's saying, bloop, I'm just going to turn the mute on him, then that also checks the box for them. To identify stories that may be false. Okay, so stop for a second. May be false. Stories that may be false. So you're identifying, you guys are going to... What's ironic about this is all the moral relativism, the subjectivism. You can't point to a universal standard of right and wrong, but they apparently believe one exists if they're going to say that some stories are false and some are true. But just try getting them to explain what they think is true and false and what their standard is. They will dodge, they will evade your question like the plague and not answer it straight. What it really is progressivism, though. It's progressivism, it's globalism, it's secularism, it's humanism. Anyway. In countries where we work with independent third-party fact-checkers, like Snopes, by the way, and like Soros-funded, and look this up. Just ask me for the links. I don't have them to give to you right now. I'll give them later. Snopes and George Soros-funded organizations are their third-party fact-checkers. It's like, okay, right. Stories rated as false by those fact-checkers are shown lower in newsfeed. So if Snopes, a left-leaning website, not objectively curated, but curated by political activists for the left, if Snopes says that the source of your story, if they say that Fox News or Breitbart or The Blaze or Ben Shapiro or National Review or Jonah Goldberg, if they say any of those guys are not reliable because they are arguing against leftism, then Facebook is going to say, oh, okay, thanks, Snopes. Thanks, leftists, for telling us what we wanted to hear, because we supported a foregone conclusion by picking people that were going to be leftist, third-party fact checkers to begin with. Now get this. If pages or domains repeatedly create or share misinformation, we significantly reduce their distribution and remove their advertising rights. So what's being said here is you can be shadow banned. You will be shadow banned. They have been shadow banning people. We will significantly reduce their distribution and remove their advertising rights. If they feel like you're sharing misinformation, which, again, they are going to define based on their leftist worldview, if I write an article and I say global warming is a hoax, this global warming hysteria is a Ponzi scheme designed to get you to give your money to leftists and give your political power to leftists. I wrote a series of articles like that and about that. And they can decide, okay, you've got 500 people that like and follow your page, but we're only going to let 10 of them see that story. We're not going to totally silence you, but we're only going to let 10 of those people have your article, your latest thing that you shared to Facebook, your Facebook page for your blog. Only 10 of them are actually going to get to read that article or even see it. Not all 10 of those people are going to even click on it. But you keep posting. You post part 1 of that series. You post part 2, part 3, part 4. And we're just going to keep ratcheting down the number of people that reaches, because you've been a bad boy. We're going to have that python constrict you, more and more, until you shape up and fly right and decide to stop being political. You don't like that. And I've been saying this was happening for years. I've been saying it for years. And the naive people that I love dearly, who are friends and family, who didn't want to think about this, didn't want it to be true, didn't want to, more importantly, more to the point, didn't want to do anything about it, and didn't want to be upset about something that they weren't willing to do anything about. Said, no, that's paranoid, that's crazy, that's, no. There's no evidence of that. And I said, dadgummit, it's happening. If you would just read the news and pay attention and think, connect the dots. This is not some weird, wacko, tinfoil hat thing. Facebook is saying if pages or domains repeatedly create or share misinformation, we significantly reduce their distribution. We won't completely ban you necessarily right out the gate, but we will limit how many people can actually see what it is that you're posting. And logically speaking, if I were to develop a platform like Facebook, and I were a leftist, and I am a secularist, and I'm a humanist, and I want you to believe in these harebrained, utopian, socialist ideas that I have for the world. Rules for radicals. Saul Alinsky, he writes, the real radical is not the long-haired hippie who doesn't bathe. The real radical is the guy that puts on the suit and tie, who shaves, who behaves politely, who doesn't let on for all of what he plans to do or aims to do or wants to do. He takes it incrementally. If you're willing to give him half of what he wants now and half of what he wants later, he'll thank you for the first half now, and then he's going to come back for the second half later. That's what Saul Alinsky writes. Saul Alinsky being the philosopher of choice for the American left. He trained the people that trained Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, and had. He was the evil master of all these Sith apprentices who are trying to take over the Republic. And he says flat out, don't let on to all of what you're trying to do. Do it very sneakily. Hide behind this veneer of being professional and serious. And we're also working, I'm going to read this, we're also working to empower people to decide for themselves what to read, trust, and share by giving them more context on stories, tools like related articles. So, just to explain this too, they're going to phrase that in a way that is a positive spin, but I've noticed this for several years. And I had friends send me snapshots of things that I had written that I shared to Facebook, either from the blog or what have you, and how when you would click on read more for the article, it would show suggested other articles for you to read next on Facebook, on the Facebook feed, and it would show things right above and below. And let's imagine, for the sake of a comparison, I'm going to draw an analogy for the people that are not following what I'm saying here. So I share an article about, let's say, pick an issue. How about Moana? I wrote an article about the morality, the underlying moral messages in the Disney movie Moana, and that's gotten a lot of searches, a lot of hits, a lot of people that said, "Man, it was so subtle, but it really bothered me. It gave me the heebie-jeebies." What it is that's being basically presented as an alternative to the view of good versus evil, where you now have the hero being the bad guy, and you have the villain just being misunderstood, and you don't actually have to fight evil. You have to appease this angry villain, what you thought was a villain, and then you'll have peace and tranquility if you just appease. If you transpose that to let's say the war on terror. You don't have to fight the terrorists. You just have to give them the bed and breakfast treatment here in the States. Close Guantanamo. Allow them to come in and build mosques up the street from the Twin Towers that radical Muslims knocked down with airplanes back in 2001. You have to give them the right to indoctrinate your kids in the public education system. You have to just give them what they want, and then they'll stop being so angry. You have to tell your women to cover up at the beach and at the mall. Tell them to start advertising modest clothing, according to Muslims. You start capitulating more and more. If you're a European government, you tell your women not to go out at night because of all the rapes. And then you censor. You get Facebook and Twitter to censor the citizens of those European countries when they object to the women being raped and all these Muslim migrants being all rapey because their value system is corrupt. You get an academic in the Pennsylvania law school, a professor, saying not all cultures are equal. The value systems of cultures are different, and some value systems are superior to others because they're more in alignment with the truth and with what actually works. You can measure this objectively. She says that, and all of a sudden she's at risk of losing her job, and nobody wants to talk about why what she said was not true. They just want her to be quiet because their fifis got hurt. And they're just all they do now is they just aim their emotions at whatever it is that they don't like, and then they just blast it like this death ray from an evil genius's super weapon. Just emotion. And if that's not enough on one person, you get a big group of people. You get 33 people that are instructors, professors at the University of Pennsylvania. You get them to sign a letter, so then your collective emotions just eventually overpower this idea that you don't like this person you want to destroy, and that's how that works in this day and age. And if we don't do that, we just shun them. And the disturbing thing, people can say, well, it's not Facebook. Facebook isn't censoring you. It's just people don't like you. People don't like what you have to say. Boy, that's a lot better. That's so much better. But which comes first, the chicken or the egg? You read Brave New World. It's this dystopian novel that was written back in the early 1900s. I believe it was early 1900s. And it was kind of a parody of all the utopian H.G. Wells. There's all these glowing visions for the future. I was just going to be up and up and up and better as we went along. Man was going to get better. It was science fiction was the natural progression of the evolutionary worldview. Where man is going to get better and better as he goes along. Technology is going to get better and better. We're going to become like gods. And that was the vision of Star Trek, which I loved dearly growing up, which I still enjoy watching, although I have to take it with a grain of salt. I have to give my children a grain of salt as we're watching, and help them to unpack what's being said, what's being communicated, what's true and what's not true, and what they're watching. But that's Gene Roddenberry's view was of a future, this utopian future of the enterprise, where there's no more capitalism, there's no more poverty, there's no more desire to go out and make money. And all of the characters that are interested in money, you'll notice in Star Trek, the Ferengi are just the creepiest, most slithery race in the whole scheme of things. But the Federation, they don't even think about money anymore. They just, technology allows us to have these godlike abilities to just make whatever we want out of nothing. We have a holodeck, and we have whatever the machine's called that makes their food. We have transporters. We can just go wherever we want, snap our fingers like that, and it happens. And the vision there, the seed of an idea that was being planted in society was that we can be good apart from God. In fact, we can be better apart from God. And that God is like Q, just mucking things up because he's capricious, because he can't, because he's all powerful. And how we need to embrace humanism and secularism in order to have this utopian vision for the future realized, and in order for us to become Star Trek and the Federation and all that. And that was fiction, but Facebook is for reals. And they're trying to actually do and accomplish and achieve in our lifetime what Gene Roddenberry was just conceptualizing and laying out as fiction. And yeah, I think you get a Zuckerberg. Maybe he was raised on Star Trek too, and raised by the people that maybe he was the intellectual child of Gene Roddenberry's vision and people like that. And so you meld that with the Saul Alinsky idea of you just present this, you show up to the congressional hearing that you have been ordered to attend, and when you're asked about whether you're suppressing conservative voices, you punt, and you hem and you haw, or you express disdain. And then the internet, full of these idiotic millennials that don't read books and don't have any awareness of things outside their feelings, all applaud it, and they say, yeah, those stupid congressmen, stupid, Ted Cruz doesn't know anything about the internet, doesn't even know how Facebook works, what a bunch of old fogies. We should lower the voting age to 5, and then, nobody over 20 should be allowed to vote, and then, we'll just see how that works out. Good luck with that. As long as Zuckerberg shaved that morning and came to the hearing with a suit and tie, and if he had the carefully massaged facts and deflections that he needed to, he made the appearance of checking that box. But anybody who's been paying attention knows it's a farce. It's an absolute farce. And in the future, all they have to do, if a political candidate, let's say this Joel Crowder, he posts a story to Facebook saying that he is for this latest thing that was a big deal in our neck of the woods, which was these environmentalists not even from this area, wanted to do away with this intake dam that's been here for a century that allows the Yellowstone River Valley in Savage area and up and down the river to have irrigation, farmers to have irrigation for their crops. That's important in an area of the country that can often be very dry and inhospitable for agriculture. And they wanted to do away with the dam for the sake of some stupid fish that has been doing fine, by the way, for the past century. The fish is fine, but these environmentalists, I think, are planted here by virtue signaling out-of-staters who want to feel good about themselves. They want to say, hey, I'm supporting this noble cause. And, never mind that it's going to destroy the farming economy of this area on which so many families depend. Never mind that we need farming in order to have food at the grocery store. Where do you think your food comes from, people? It comes from farmers. Thank you very much. Never mind all that. Maybe some Hollywood type wanted to build, a condo for himself or herself on the banks of the Yellowstone River, but he didn't want all these farms and farmers getting in the way. So, we'll send in our little disruptors to pelt that local economy until farmers have to go under and sell their property dirt cheap, and then these Hollywood types, these idiots who make money by showing their face on the camera and smiling and being charming and reading a script, then they can have their nice big house overlooking the Badlands when the sun comes up in the morning. And don't think that doesn't happen. My family, we farmed. My dad farmed when I was a kid and got out of it. That's why we moved to Ohio when I was 10. Was a local government official was trying to make it. He was a tyrant who just illustrated why you should not give the government power over you except where absolutely totally necessary. Because he was a tyrant and he liked to threaten all the farmers in the area that if they didn't ask how high whenever he said jump, he could take their farm away by making it look like or sound like they weren't following the terms of federal programs that they had signed up for, in which case they'd have to give money back, perhaps with interest, perhaps with fines. They wouldn't be allowed to have future monies to fund their farming operations. And then what do you know? What happens in that case? You go bankrupt. If you devised your whole farm plan off of having these funds, which were given to you maybe, and you've already spent the money, the only way you're going to get that money back is you sell the farm and you sell your equipment. And oh, what do you know? Just so happens somebody's got friends in real estate, or friends from from the other side of the state, or friends from outside of this, that want to move in, and they want to be able to buy that land and hunt on it, or build a little cabin or whatever, and everybody else was afraid. And my parents had the guts to stand up to it, and they paid an awful price. And I did not grow up well off. I remember us digging through couch cushions to find change to go buy milk. And I don't say that at all to embarrass my parents. I think it was very brave and courageous that they did not allow themselves to be bullied and railroaded. We had a situation where they were trying to bring documentation proving that they were abiding by the terms of the program, trying to bring that in for another official in the same office to review. And this corrupt official didn't want anybody else giving a second opinion, because then that would shed light on his dirty dealings. And so he literally in one case blocked the filing cabinet from another of his coworkers in the USDA from being able to go and access my parents' files. Literally stood in front of the filing cabinet and said, no, you can't look at that. Literally, his office called the local sheriff's department, and they came and tried to block the door from my parents going in and taking in their own paperwork to say, hey, we have been following the terms. This guy is not telling the truth. We are being bullied and treated unjustly. And they knew what was at stake, and that's why they fought. And the stakes only went up when they dared to stand up and to say, this is wrong, and they objected to it. There was a OIG investigation that was launched, in which farmers from all over the county came in and were interviewed and asked what their experience with this guy was. And long story short, and I was young when all this was happening. I'm not privy to all the gory details. I just lived it as a kid. My parents got out of farming. My dad sold the farm. He did sell the equipment. We moved to Ohio because we got followed for about 45 minutes. Hey, Josiah, could you go get Enoch and bring him downstairs, please?
Sure, can I get to land first so that I don't drown?
Can't you pause it?
I can't pause it or I'll drown now. Pausing it just shows a menu.
Okay, Eli, can you go get Enoch out? Your mom needs a hand.
Yeah, but one time.
Long story short, this guy got fired. An objective investigative unit came in with the federal government. The FBI got involved, actually. This guy got fired, was relieved of his position, and he was escorted out of the building by law enforcement. But not before we were intimidated. My parents were intimidated, and they felt very much alone. They were being talked to as if they were causing trouble, and you just shouldn't get into all that. But I'll tell you what, I bet you the farmers of Dawson County sure appreciated having that guy out of there, if that's the way he was treating them too. And it was the right thing. It didn't have to be pleasant to need doing. And I am very much not in favor of government control for things that are not the government's responsibility. The government, if it has the power to give you everything, you've also given it the power to take everything away arbitrarily. And for all these leftist arguments about how private enterprise and individual citizens can't be trusted because they can be corrupt, oh man, I'd far more prefer dealing with a corrupt individual citizen than dealing with a corrupt government official who can call the police if they don't want to be held accountable for being crooked. You get law enforcement and bureaucrats on the same page, and they're both covering each other's backs, and they're both giving each other little perks for being crooked, and maybe they're working together with criminal elements in the community or in the region. And boy, where do you go to get away from that? And how do you even know, when you're up against that? That versus, even if you had some rich person, they start a company, they're acting crooked, this Zuckerberg, whatever, he gets in charge of Facebook, and all these libertarians, they say, well, you could just get off of Facebook if you don't like what he's doing there. If you object to it so strongly, just stop using Facebook. And he's free to govern his private business any way he sees fit. Well, that's fine, but if he doesn't want to lose a lot of members, he should govern it in a way that's not crooked and unscrupulous. And the really dangerous thing is, you start having Facebook used to get people elected that Zuckerberg likes, and to keep people out of office, or to get them out of office, or to obstruct their governing mandate once they are in office. You start using Facebook to manipulate all that, pull the levers, push the buttons, and and then you blur the line between Facebook being a private entity pretty quick. And then you start seeing Facebook cutting deals with the governments of China and Turkey and Russia and Iran and whoever else, and Pakistan is a notable one, cutting these deals to censor their own people. You can't any longer say that Facebook is just this private company, it's this mom and pop store. It ain't so. So anyway, I'm going to leave it right there. My phone's about to die. I've got life happening. But tune in for our next exciting episode. Tomorrow, I hope to, either tomorrow or Saturday, hope to have interviewed our local candidate here in Sydney, Montana, asked her position on things, getting involved in local politics, because that's the thing of it too. All politics is local, and also these local politics, they do have effects on politics at a state, national level, and an international level, and we should be paying attention. So anyway, thank you. God bless. Have a good day.